When my father handed the deed to the family vacation home to my sister Chloe, he didn't even look me in the eye. "Chloe has a husband and 2 kids, Gerald," he announced at Sunday dinner. "Her family will always come first. You're single, you're stable, and frankly, you're always last." Chloe gave me that familiar, smug smirk across the table, expecting me to argue. Instead, I set down my fork, smiled, and quietly said, "Good to know." They thought I was accepting my place. They had no idea I was officially checking out of the family business. For 7 years, I was the invisible pillar holding my family upright. When my father's HVAC business hit a slump, I covered their mortgage for 6 months. When Chloe's husband, Brad, quit his job to pursue day trading, I paid off their credit card debt to keep the repo men away from their driveway. I never asked for credit, never demanded praise, and never held it over their heads. I simply believed family looked after one another. That delusion died on a Sunday evening in late September. My parents called a formal family dinner at their house. Roast beef was on the table, but the centerpiece was a manila folder resting by my father's wine glass. With theatrical pride, he slid the folder across the mahogany surface directly into Chloe's hands. "The lakefront cottage," my father declared, his voice swelling. "Deeded over to you, and Brad completely debt-free. You have children, Chloe. You have a legacy to build." I stared in silence. That property had been maintained with my money and weekend labor for nearly a decade. "What about Gerald?" my mother asked softly, glancing at me. My father didn't hesitate. "Chloe's family comes first. Gerald is single, makes good money, and frankly, he is always last." Chloe looked across the table and flashed that sharp, triumphant smirk she had perfected since childhood. She expected an explosion. She expected me to beg for fairness. I just smiled, took a sip of water, and said, "Good to know." The next morning at 8 a.m., I did not call in sick. I did not complain to friends. I opened my personal banking portal and began a quiet, calculated audit of my life. For nearly a decade, my generosity had been running on automated pilot. I pulled up the recurring transfers. First was the monthly $1,200 subsidy sent to my parents' checking account, categorized as maintenance and utility assistance. I canceled the schedule with 3 clicks. Next was the secondary credit card issued under my main account, the one Chloe used for her kids' private tutoring, seasonal clothes, and grocery emergencies. I immediately called customer service and deactivated the authorized card. Then came the co-signed agreements. My name was attached to the remaining commercial line of credit for my father's business and the secondary loan on Brad's truck. I scheduled appointments with both lenders that afternoon, presenting the necessary legal notices to formally remove my authorization from any future extensions or renewals. Every dollar I recovered was quietly redirected. I opened a private commercial investment portfolio, channeling $4,500 every single month into high-yield real estate notes and liquid capital reserves. For 2 months, the silence was deafening. My family never called to thank me when the money was there, so they didn't immediately notice when the tap ran completely dry. They were too busy posting photos from their newly acquired lakefront property, showing off weekend parties and expensive patio furniture bought on credit. They genuinely believed the cushion beneath them was indestructible. They assumed that my quiet nature was a permanent guarantee of compliance. They thought I had accepted being last. In reality, I had simply removed myself from the equation entirely, leaving them to stand on a foundation made entirely of their own bad choices. Pride without discipline is a fast road to ruin, and Chloe and Brad accelerated with the pedal to the floor. Within 4 months of taking ownership of the lake house, they weren't satisfied with a debt-free vacation home. They wanted a showpiece. Brad took out a massive $140,000 second lien equity loan against the property at a suffocating 11% interest rate, convincing himself that a designer infinity pool and custom outdoor kitchen would double its market value. At the same time, Chloe purchased a brand new luxury SUV on an 8-year finance plan. They were living like royalty on borrowed time, convinced that any financial hiccup would simply vanish like it always had. Then the house of cards collapsed. In late January, Brad's primary sales contract fell through after he missed 3 consecutive delivery deadlines. Overnight, their household income was slashed by 70%. The aggressive remodeling loan payments kicked in, followed immediately by overdue property tax assessments that Chloe had casually tossed into a kitchen drawer and forgotten. When the delinquency notices began piling up in red envelopes, Chloe ran straight to our parents, sobbing about unexpected bad luck and unfair bank penalties. My father reached for his usual solution, writing a check to cover the immediate shortfall. But when he logged into his emergency account, his balance was nearly zero. For years, my quiet $1,200 monthly transfers had been quietly subsidizing their lifestyle and keeping their accounts green. Without my safety net, my parents had been burning through their own shallow reserves without even realizing it. The lake house was officially 90 days delinquent. The private lender initiated foreclosure proceedings, and the auction date was set for the end of the month. For the first time in their lives, they had run out of safety nets. The summons came on a rainy Tuesday evening. My mother called my phone 3 times before leaving a frantic voicemail claiming there was an urgent family emergency that required everyone at the dining table immediately. When I arrived at my parents' house, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Chloe was sitting on the sofa, clutching a tissue with red, swollen eyes. Brad was pacing near the window, staring at the floor, while my father sat at the head of the table with a stack of bank notices spread before him. "Gerald, sit down," my father commanded, his voice tight. "We don't have time to beat around the bush. The bank is foreclosing on the lake house, and Chloe's family is about to lose everything." I sat in the armchair, resting my hands on my lap, and looked at them calmly. "And why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to wire $85,000 into Chloe's account by tomorrow morning," my father stated flatly, as if ordering a meal. "It clears the immediate arrears, halts the auction, and resets the loan terms. You're the only one with liquid capital right now." Chloe sniffled, looking up with practiced helplessness. "Gerald, please. Think about my kids. You don't have a family to support. You don't need that money sitting in your accounts." I stared at her for 5 full seconds, letting the silence stretch until Brad shifted uncomfortably. "No," I said simply. My father slammed his hand onto the table. "No? What do you mean, no? This is your sister. Her family comes first, Gerald. Have you lost your mind?" I looked my father straight in the eye and kept my voice level. "You told me 4 months ago that I am always last. Why would the person in last place pay the first-class bill?" My father's face turned an ugly shade of crimson. "If you walk out that door, Gerald, you are abandoning this family. You're being selfish, petty, and cruel over a comment made months ago." "I'm not being cruel," I replied, standing up and buttoning my coat. "I am simply respecting the rules you wrote." I walked out into the rain, leaving their panicked shouting behind me. I didn't waste a single minute feeling guilty. Instead, I put my background to work. The next morning, I contacted my attorney, Marcus Vance. Through the public county registry and court dockets, Marcus pulled the complete lien portfolio on the lake house. Brad's high-interest secondary lender was a distressed debt firm that had zero interest in holding physical real estate. They wanted liquidity, and fast. I instructed Marcus to establish a private entity, Apex Horizon Holdings LLC, shielding my name entirely from public view. Acting through the LLC, Marcus approached the distressed lender's legal team 48 hours before the scheduled public sheriff sale. Because the secondary loan was deeply in default and property values in the area were softening, the lender was terrified of taking a total loss at auction. Marcus made them a clean, non-contingent cash offer. We would purchase the underlying promissory note and security deed for 60 cents on the dollar. The bank accepted within 24 hours. 2 days before the scheduled foreclosure auction, Chloe received a formal notice stating the public sale had been canceled due to a private institutional note acquisition. My mother called me, crying tears of relief, claiming a miracle had occurred and that God had protected Chloe's family. Chloe even posted on social media about how hard work and faith always prevail over bad luck. They thought they had slipped through the net. They had no idea I was the one holding the strings. The celebration lasted exactly 5 days. On a crisp Monday morning, a process server arrived at the lake house, delivering a formal notice to cure default or quit premises. Attached was the certified deed of assignment. 30 minutes later, Chloe and my parents burst into my office lobby unannounced, demanding answers. Security escorted them into the conference room where Marcus Vance and I were waiting. "What is this sick joke, Gerald?" Chloe shrieked, slamming the legal envelope onto the glass table. "You bought our mortgage? You're trying to kick my children out of their home?" "It's not your home, Chloe," I said evenly, sliding a detailed spreadsheet across the table. "You defaulted on the note. Apex Horizon Holdings owns the debt, which means I own the property." My father stood up, trembling with outrage. "He is your own blood, Gerald. You set a trap for your sister. You used your wealth to humiliate us." "I didn't set a trap," I replied, pointing to the columns of numbers on the ledger. "Over 7 years, I gave this family $184,000 in unreturned loans and subsidies. You called me a safety net when you needed cash and told me I was always last when it was time to share equity." I stood up, resting my palms on the table, looking directly at Chloe. "The terms are simple. Pay the $140,000 balance in full within 30 days, sign a market-rate lease of $4,200 a month, or pack your bags. Family rates no longer apply." Chloe didn't have the money, and my father couldn't secure another loan. 30 days later, a moving truck pulled out of the driveway. Chloe and Brad were forced to downsize into a modest 3-bedroom rental on the edge of town, finally forced to live within the reality of their actual income. My parents attempted a campaign of guilt, sending long text messages accusing me of destroying family unity. I didn't engage or argue. I simply set a firm, unbreakable boundary. My personal finances and assets were permanently off-limits. When they realized emotional manipulation would no longer unlock my bank accounts, the demands finally stopped. I renovated the lake house over the following summer, replacing the unfinished construction with clean, modern lines. In July, I signed a long-term commercial corporate lease on the property, turning what was once a source of endless drama into a thriving, high-yield asset. Sitting on the sunlit back deck on the final weekend before the tenants arrived, the lake was completely calm. Walking away from ungrateful expectations wasn't about seeking revenge. It was about reclaiming my self-respect. For the first time in my life, I wasn't coming in last. I was standing on my own 2 feet.